I'm genuinely raising my glass tonight to just a truly wild piece of data.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so right now, 88% of corporations are actively paying for artificial intelligence infrastructure. But, and here's the kicker, a massive 81% of those organizations are not making a single dime in bottom line gains from it.
That is just staggering.
Right. So go ahead, pull up a chair, grab a drink, and settle in with us. Welcome to our fourth deep dive, which is part of the Tech Lounge podcast series. Tonight we are discussing the State of Organizations 2026. Will the solo founders or OPCs and AI redefine the tech frontier? And they're just taking a massive stack of recent intelligence and unpacking how this AI shift is colliding with a really fragmented global economy.
It is honestly the perfect time to unpack this. The market is in an absolute whirlwind right now. And that 81% failure rate you just mentioned, that is basically the central paradox of our current business landscape.
It really is. I mean, everyone is buying it, but nobody is profiting from it.
Exactly. Companies are aggressively adopting this supposedly revolutionary tool, yet the financial impact is just, well, it's flatlining. And the reason behind this failure, it isn't a flaw in the technology itself.
No, not at all.
Right, the failure stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of what artificial intelligence actually is when you put it inside an enterprise context.
Because companies are, they're treating it like a standard software update.
Yes, exactly.
They look at AI as this plug-and-play tool to make a single employee marginally faster at, sending emails or crunching spreadsheets. But treating AI like a software update is like upgrading your restaurant's drive-through speaker so it takes orders in 2 seconds, but you keep the exact same single chef in the kitchen.
That is a brilliant way to put it.
You haven't actually fixed the restaurant's throughput at all. You've just created a massive, chaotic traffic jam of orders in the kitchen.
That is the exact friction point we're seeing everywhere. To realize any actual return on investment, an organization has to undergo what the sources call a double transformation. A double transformation.
Right. So the first transformation is the easy part. It's acquiring and integrating the technical infrastructure, buying the software.
Sure, writing a check.
Exactly. The second, and profoundly more difficult transformation, is tearing down the actual organizational structure to fit the new speed of the technology. You just cannot drop an autonomous AI agent into a workflow that was designed in, 2015 for human limitations.
You really can't. And the data actually quantifies the cost of that second transformation beautifully. For every $1 an organization spends on AI technology, they actually have to spend $5 on their people and processes just to make it functional.
Wait, $5?
$5. A 1-to-5 ratio. And that $5 isn't just going toward, a weekend training seminar with stale donuts.
Right, I'd hope not for that price.
No. That money is spent on ripping out legacy reporting lines. It's spent on removing layers of middle management approval and building automated compliance safeguards so the AI can actually execute tasks without a human bottleneck slowing it down. And that is exactly where the heavy legacy corporations are just totally paralyzed. That $5 structural cost is a nightmare for them. They are bogged down by departmental silos, endless bureaucratic consensus building, and these totally outdated operational models.
It's like turning a cargo ship.
Exactly like that. Restructuring a multinational corporation takes years, but the technology is advancing in weeks.
So if those corporate giants are paralyzed by their own weight and bureaucracy, they leave this massive vacuum in the market for innovation. And right now, we are seeing exactly who is rushing in to fill that vacuum.
Which is fascinating.
It really is. It brings us to this huge shift happening in China right now that completely upends the traditional Silicon Valley model. The model of massive venture capital firms funding sprawling tech startups. We are watching the rise of the one-person company, or OPC army.
The OPC army. It represents this massive state-sponsored deployment of decentralized R&D.
Yeah, state-sponsored.
Right. Instead of relying on established tech giants to drive innovation, local governments in places like Shenzhen are actively subsidizing an army of AI-powered solo founders.
It's just wild to think about.
It is. They are taking tech workers who were recently caught up in industry layoffs, and they're matching them with abandoned data centers and empty office spaces. They're literally turning these dead spaces into rent-free incubators to catch these unemployed tech talents.
To really wrap our heads around the mechanics of this, let's look at one of the individuals highlighted in the intelligence. So there's this guy, Ma Rupeng. He's a 41-year-old former programmer who just walked away from his 2-decade corporate career.
Wow, 20 years.
20 years. and now he works entirely from his apartment. He runs 3 computers simultaneously, leveraging AI tools like Claude Code and Figma. But the crazy part is he is just using them as little digital assistants.
What is he doing with them?
He is using Claude Code as the actual architectural brain to write complex back-end logic, while Figma acts as the visual skeleton for the front-end user interface. Ma Ruping just sits in the middle. He's just passing prompts and directing the architecture.
So he's basically the conductor of an AI orchestra.
Exactly. He is simultaneously the lead programmer, the UI designer, and the QA tester, all by himself. He's building this system he calls Big House to autonomously generate mobile apps, entirely on his own.
That is just incredible. And by lowering the market entry threshold to practically 0, these solo founders become these hyper-agile innovation scouts.
Innovation scouts, I like that.
Well, think about a traditional corporate R&D department. To get anything done, it requires budget approvals, stakeholder consensus, and a guaranteed high return on investment just to get a single project greenlit.
Oh yeah, the red tape is endless.
Endless. But Ma Ruping, he has 0 stakeholders. None. He can afford to prototype hyper-niche, highly experimental solutions in a matter of days. And if an idea fails, he just pivots the next morning. There's no board to answer to.
Right. But I do have to challenge the long-term viability of this, though, because, replacing a stable tech salary with a government grant to sit in an empty data center and code with an AI, it sounds a lot like state-sponsored unemployment relief.
That's a very fair point.
It feels like crisis management for a lagging job market rather than, a durable economic strategy. Can a one-person micro-startup actually sustain itself long-term?
Many traditional venture capitalists share that exact skepticism. They look at these OPCs and they see a sustainable freelance gig, not the next multinational unicorn.
It's a lifestyle business.
Exactly. But here's the thing. The sustainability of any single OPC doesn't actually matter to the broader ecosystem.
Wait, really? Why not?
Because it is a volume play. Shenzhen alone has a 2-year plan to nurture over 10 leading OPC communities and 1,000 of these AI startups by 2027.
1,000 startups in 2 years.
Yes. So even if 90% of these solo founders completely fail to build a sustainable business, the 10% that discover a novel hyper-niche AI application are rapidly expanding the technological frontier. This sheer volume of bottom-up innovation is applying massive evolutionary pressure to the traditional corporate model.
Because it proves that a single person, armed with a carefully stacked array of AI agents, can basically do the work of a 50-person corporate team. And they could do it faster, without the massive overhead.
Exactly.
If you are a legacy enterprise, that level of speed from a single guy in his apartment is terrifying. So how do traditional companies possibly compete with an army of thousands of solo founders?
Well, they have to figure out how to turn their own employees into these AI-empowered orchestrators. There is no other way.
But doing that is easier said than done, right?
Oh, absolutely. There is a massive imagination gap preventing that shift right now. The data shows over half of enterprise leaders, like 55%, acknowledge that building AI skills within their workforce will result in exponential productivity gains.
Okay, so they know it's important.
They know it's important in theory. However, when you dig into the operational reality, 53% of those same leaders only see AI as a basic support tool.
Like a glorified spell checker.
Right. Something to draft a polite email or summarize a meeting. A mere 25% of leaders actually view AI as an autonomous teammate capable of executing complex workflows independently.
Honestly, you cannot entirely blame the leadership for that hesitation because the employees themselves are naturally terrified.
Terrified of losing their jobs.
Exactly. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. If I am an employee and management tells me to train an AI agent to flawlessly execute my daily administrative workflows, I am essentially building my own replacement. Why would any rational worker actively participate in their own firing?
They wouldn't. And that fear of obsolescence is the primary roadblock. The intelligence indicates that 46% of the barriers to enterprise AI adoption are rooted in concerns about the technology itself, specifically job replacement and bias. And another 39% are organizational challenges.
So it's mostly fear and bad management.
Basically, employees drag their feet because the introduction of the technology is framed horribly by management. If leadership introduces AI under the banner of process automation, the workforce instantly translates that directly to headcount reduction.
Right. Automation equals layoffs.
Yeah.
So how does an organization actually reframe that narrative without just lying to their workforce about the changing nature of their jobs?
The most effective tactical shift we are seeing involves changing the core question asked of the employee. Instead of talking about corporate efficiency or automation, managers are sitting down with their teams and asking a very different question.
Which is?
They ask, how can you use AI to reduce your workload by 4 hours a week of your most mind-numbing, repetitive tasks?
Oh, I love that. Think about your own day if you're listening to this. If an AI suddenly cleared out 4 hours of your administrative garbage by Thursday afternoon, it changes your entire relationship with the tool.
It completely flips the script.
Right. Yeah. You stop viewing the AI as a threat to your livelihood, and you start viewing it as a tool for your own sanity. You make the AI serve the employee, not the other way around.
Exactly. And to signal that this isn't just a covert layoff strategy, major global tech firms are putting massive capital behind upskilling. The sources mention one major tech firm publicly committing to developing 50,000 generative AI professionals globally by 2027.
50,000. That's a massive investment in people.
It proves that the objective is not to run the company with fewer humans. The objective is to maintain the same headcount, but radically elevate their skill sets. Workers must transition from being manual task doers to being strategic task orchestrators.
But, saving an employee 4 hours a week introduces a completely new management dilemma.
What's that?
Well, according to the research, only 30% of leaders report that their employees are actually using that freed up time for high-value tasks. Things like critical thinking, strategy, or innovation.
Yes. The empty time problem. If you do not actively redesign the expectations of the role, the employee will simply use those 4 freed-up hours to take a longer lunch.
Which honestly sounds great.
Sure, it sounds great for the employee, but from a business perspective, it's a loss. Or worse, they will instinctively fill the void with more low-value administrative busy work just because that is what they are comfortable doing.
Right, checking emails that don't need to be checked.
Exactly. Organizations have to actively teach their workforce how to utilize newly found cognitive bandwidth.
And cognitive bandwidth is the critical resource right now, because the pressure on these organizations isn't just digital. The physical world is fracturing simultaneously, and that demands a completely unprecedented level of operational speed.
It really does. The era of the slow, hyper-optimized, highly globalized supply chain is officially dead.
Rest in peace.
Truly. The data notes that 72% of leaders report geopolitical uncertainties are significantly impacting their organizations, yet 43% admit they were paralyzed, they divested assets too late, or totally failed to shift operations when the warning signs were flashing.
There is this gripping case study in the intelligence on surviving this physical fragmentation.
Yeah.
It's about Tony's, the company that manufactures those little interactive audio players for children.
Oh yeah, I know them.
So they had exclusively produced their hardware in China for years. But anticipating shifting trade winds, they aggressively scrambled to open a new manufacturing facility in Vietnam.
Smart move.
Very smart. And the timing is nuts. They officially opened the doors of that new Vietnam factory on April 1st. Literally the next day, on April 2nd, massive U.S. tariffs dropped on Chinese-produced goods.
Are you kidding? 1 day difference.
1 day. Because they had the agility to move their physical footprint, they entirely dodged a tariff shock that absolutely tripled their competitors. And the best part, they didn't have to raise consumer prices.
That kind of precision timing is rarely just luck. Surviving those shocks requires dynamic scenario planning, and that is powered by digital platforms and AI analytics.
You can't just guess that stuff.
No, you can't. You can no longer rely on a static plan A and plan B. Companies must run continuous digital twins of their supply chains.
Digital twins, so like a virtual simulation of the real world.
Exactly. Simulating 50 different geopolitical shocks at once. A sudden tariff, a border closure, a port strike in a crucial transit hub, and they have the AI instantly map out the logistical alternatives before the concrete is even poured on a new factory.
It is basically like having an AI act as the air traffic controller for your global business.
Yeah.
It's constantly routing your flights around sudden storms in real time.
That's a great analogy.
But Tony's drew a really fascinating hard boundary. While they use AI to ruthlessly optimize their supply chain logistics, they explicitly refuse to use AI to generate the creative stories and content for the children's audio players.
Keeping the human element.
Exactly. The AI acts as the air traffic controller, sure, but they still demand human pilots flying the actual planes. They use for speed, but they protect the authentic creative soul of the product. It's like using a smartwatch to pace your marathon. but you still have to run the race yourself.
That is the ultimate balancing act right now, integrating the ruthless efficiency of AI logistics with the authentic creativity of human talent.
It's a tough tightrope to walk.
It really is. Navigating a world where solo founders in Shenzhen possess the prototyping power of a multinational corporation, where employees must orchestrate autonomous digital teammates, and where supply chains must physically shift overnight. It requires a complete reinvention of how we steer a company.
The old way just doesn't work anymore.
Not at all. The traditional command and control steering wheel is totally broken.
Which brings us to what the research refers to as inside-out leadership.
Yes, inside-out leadership.
In this era of profound external disruption, leading an organization effectively requires an almost uncomfortable level of internal self-reflection. The data shows this massive performance gap. Leaders who practice active self-reflection are nearly twice as likely to successfully steer their organizations through sudden shocks compared to leaders who do not. It's like 30% compared to just 17%.
It proves that self-awareness has literally become a measurable competitive advantage.
Which is wild to think about. Self-awareness is a KPI.
Right. However, the operational reality for most executives and middle managers makes this incredibly difficult to practice. The primary barriers to creating a reflective, psychologically safe environment are simple. Intense time pressure, which sits at 47%, and a deep-seated fear of failure at 42%.
Look, self-reflection sounds great on a corporate HR poster.
Oh.
But when a middle manager is staring down a massive quarterly quota, vulnerability and reflection feel like a fast track to getting fired.
Exactly. The pressure is too high.
When the pressure is on, falling back into reactive, authoritarian decision-making just feels like the only safe option.
But falling into that reactive trap is what ultimately costs them more time and resources in the long run. To break that cycle, modern leaders must embrace a framework called fearless learning.
Fearless learning.
Yes. Historically, the corporate model elevated the CEO or manager as the smartest person in the room. You know, the decisive visionary who held all the answers.
Steve Jobs model.
Exactly. But today, the world is moving far too quickly for any single human brain to comprehend all the interlocking technological and geopolitical variables.
You just can't know everything anymore.
You can't. So the most powerful tool a modern leader has today is the ability to look at their team and sincerely say, I don't know.
Because admitting ignorance completely shifts the job description. Your job is no longer to provide the answer. Your job is to orchestrate the team that finds the answer faster than the competition.
Precisely. And doing that requires building what the intelligence calls fusion teams. A leader must intentionally hire and empower individuals whose technical capabilities, especially their fluency in AI orchestration, far exceed the leader's own skills.
So you actively hire people who are way smarter than you.
Exactly. The leader provides the ethical boundaries, the strategic purpose, and the psychological safety to experiment. The team and their AI agents provide the execution.
It is a total inversion of the traditional corporate power dynamic.
It really is a whole other beast.
Well, looking at our glasses, it seems we have reached the bottom of our drinks, and we have covered some massive ground today. We unpacked the drive-through traffic jam of corporate AI integration, the agile threat of China's subsidized OPC army, the psychological hurdles of turning terrified employees into orchestrators, and the deeply reflective leadership required to survive a fragmenting global landscape.
It's been quite the journey.
It really has. To everyone who pulled up a chair and joined us at the lounge today, thank you for diving in with us. Take these insights and look at the bottlenecks in your own daily workflows this week.
But before we close out entirely, there is one final trajectory I think we need to consider.
Ooh, what's that?
Well, we spent a lot of time analyzing the integration of AI as an autonomous teammate, right? And we explored how an entire corporate R&D department can now fit into a solo founder's laptop.
Right.
But if we project this advancement just a few years forward, it forces a deeply provocative question. What happens when the AI stops being just your teammate, and its analytical and strategic capabilities completely surpass human management?
Oh, wow.
What happens when the AI algorithm is the entity setting your KPIs, dynamically allocating your resources, and evaluating your quarterly performance? In that enterprise, who is really orchestrating whom?
Man, that is a heavy thought to end on. Let that thought sit with you on your commute or your drive home tonight. Have a phenomenal rest of your week, everyone, and we will see you back here at the lounge for the next deep dive.